yeah, I took the leap of faith and I said, I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to learn what I need to learn. I'm going to work hands-on practical skills, kind of like working on people's film sets, getting that hands-on experience. At the same time, I'm a big researcher. So I go back and I look at stuff I need to research, stuff I need to find out about, things of that nature, um, to help me understand the industry, help me understand, what I'm getting into, in that sense. And it pretty much went from there.
Good morning, Michael. Or shall I say good afternoon from Vienna?
Oh, well, good afternoon. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. It's so great to meet you here on Zoom.
Nice to meet you as well. Thank you for having me on your show.
It's a great pleasure. I'm always so happy to think that we have the possibility now to speak to each other from two different continents.
The world of technology.
Exactly, yeah. Michael, you are a man who wears many hats. I mean, are a producer, you're a screenwriter. You also have a podcast, and you have such a wonderful podcast that I think is so needed, and that is that you highlight the importance of the arts on our well-being.
Yes.
Mm. So tell me your career as in film and screenwriting. How did that start?
Oh, wow. I would say it definitely started for me, I would say the start of developing who I was becoming in high school. From that point, when I was in my global studies class, I was doodling on the back of my paper because we was in a test and we had to wait till the bell rang for the teacher to dismiss the class. And I turned the paper around and I started doodling on the back of it. And then submitted it in. And then the next week, when I came back to the class, the teacher gave me an A minus and she read the back of my thing, which was actually my real technical first written poem, full blown in
Really?
format. And to me, I was just doodling words on a page.
Mm.
And she recognized that and she read it and she actually gave me extra credit for it. And she wrote, keep writing on the top
Wow.
of it.
Mm.
So right there sparked the interest that I had, or at least that was the first moment I felt from an outside person instead of me that, I had something with words on a page. So
But did you, before that, did you for yourself just write poems?
yeah, for me,
Oh, really?
I will
Mm.
always, write, doodle stuff down and had notebooks and would just write stuff. So it always was just for me at that time. And then at that moment of me just being in the space and sitting there and just doodling, and that's, found out that where she was kind of like my first fan in the sense, right? To where it says keep
Yeah.
writing.
But
Yeah.
and it's so interesting that last week I spoke to an artist in South Africa, and he was actually
Hmm.
saying that we are our first audiences,
Hmm.
and how important that is. That even if nobody else sees it, you are
Yeah.
your first audience, and now you're talking about that first you wrote, and you were the only one seeing it. But then the moment you put it out there, somebody else could appreciate it as well.
Yeah. So it was a good experience. And then from there, I, was starting to develop who I am, going to school, doing work. And then I would say, in just to speed line it a little bit, in 2014, I submitted, I completed my first chapbook, the introduction, and I did it independently. I wanted to move it out there, professional writing, and that was the first year. 2014 that my writing went professional. But in that same year, I submitted the year to going into that 2015 year, I submitted a poem to an anthology to a publishing company, AO's 21 Media. And they accepted the poem for their anthology collection, and it was printed. And within like 2 months, that the publisher of that company actually contacted me, and we had a couple of conversations, and that was my first publisher I signed to, and they signed me as a creative, and I was under contract with them for 5 years, and I
But
went on 2 book
yeah,
tours. Yeah.
before we carry on about that, but do you think it was so significant that the teacher who said to you, keep on writing, that she played a part in you having the confidence to put, to do competitions like that, or to, sort of put your work out and be confident about your work?
Um, I would say a little bit, not as far as the confidence. I think for me, the confidence was there always with my writing. I always believed
Okay.
in that feeling for myself because I'm a Cancer man, so I always was in tune with my feelings from a very young age. I always knew that. Going into adulthood, I always knew that. I think for me, that moment, especially when she read that and gave me that feedback, for me at that I was 15, going on 16. At that moment, for me, it wasn't about confidence. It was about my voice. So she heard my voice. So for me, that was reassuring more than confidence for
Oh
anything.
yeah, I understand what you
Mhm.
mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry, I interrupted you, but carry
No, no,
on.
no, please, please.
Yeah, so
That's
interesting. Yeah,
regular conversation, right? It
yeah.
happens. um, so it was, when I signed with AO's 21 Media House, I first contract as a writer, being under a publishing house, an independent publishing house. I was very honored. I was so humbled that a publisher even recognized me, in that sense. That he was willing to give me a chance to work with his company, right? Um, yeah, it was a great experience. We collaborated on my second collection, The Interlude to Sentiment to Me. It was a 40-page full poetry book. Um, they had me go on like 2 or 3 book tours. Their region was out in the United States. Their region was the Washington D.C., Virginia, Maryland, DMC market. So I would go do the market through their bookstores down there. So they had a connection of bookstores that their creators would go to and pitch us other books. And I'll share this one experience, and I think this might go into a little bit of when we talked about the teacher, right? So, and there was one stop on the book tour. We was in Virginia, and it was a kind of like an independent mom and pop bookstore. Very lovely inside, very quaint, very nice small town. A lot of foot traffic in that bookstore. Very nice. And I was set up in in corner. It was the author's day, so that was my day, and I had my books there. And this lady and her son came over, and she started talking with me. Hi, how are you? And she was with her little child. I think he probably was like 4 or 5 or 6. And she was telling me, yeah, I'm trying to introduce him to what the bookstores and kind of just expose him to this type of store. And she looked at my book, and it's so funny. I'm gonna try to do this like that. So
Mm,
she just grabbed the book off the book display. She was like, "I'm just gonna pick a poem," and I'm because me and her talking, and I was like, and she
mm,
went like this, and she picked the poem, and she landed on one of my poems called um, "I Love Your Smile," right? And she read the poem, and she started tearing. True story. Me and my publisher was there, and she started tearing, and she looked at her little son, and she said, "It's so funny. I landed on this poem because her and her husband was talking to the son just yesterday about his school pictures, and getting made up and how important it is to smile." And she landed on that poem, "Smile." And that was my conversion. She brought two
Uh,
books.
really, but amazing, and just shows you the power of poetry. You know, the
Hmm.
and the power of this art form, that it could, that it could touch her that way.
Yeah, it was a good experience. It was so pure and
Mhm.
so natural to where you could not make this up. Like it was like I'm sitting there and watching this. I was like, wow, and it just and that poem itself was just more this. It was a short poem, but it was that was the purpose of it when I wrote it. It was just to appreciate your smile, right, and
And of,
understand the power of a
yeah,
smile.
and of course, you as an author, you don't always see people's reaction when they read your work. So there, it
Sure.
was for you, that special moment that you could see it.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
but also, this is encouraging if you think it's not easy to get your book published. It's not. I mean, there are many authors, many writers who struggle for years to just get to a publisher who would be interested in their work.
Hmm.
So, how wonderful that you had this opportunity.
Yeah. I was very humble. To me, like I said, and I think for me, and that's where sometimes that self-doubt comes in.
Mm,
Just what you just said, right? Just to be acknowledged by a publisher, right?
yeah.
Sometimes that's a big
Mm,
leap. And I had that experience, and I was so grateful for it. It was being an independent creator. I was grateful that a company recognized me and said, let's work together, and I came in with an open mind, understanding certain business, but also collectively working with an editor, and getting familiar with working with the editor on writing, that part at that time, 2014, 2015. So to me, it was a great experience. And I actually still in communication with my publisher, even though I'm on a contract with them, but we're still social media friends and we check in with each other still because I felt like even though, business is business, right? But that opportunity to be heard again, right? To somebody hear my voice, that was a great thing for me. And I really appreciate that experience.
and from there, when did you then start with screenwriting, with producing films?
Yeah, so I worked for a little bit in the music industry, so I was an all around talent. And then when my writing and the poetry stuff was going on, I was at the same time converting into film. So I had some contacts, and my first film project was as a script supervisor. So I was on that project. I came in, and I'm working a script and helping them take notes and things of that nature, which was lined up with the writing aspect I was doing at the time. And then after that, I kind of got the bug and I said I wanted to learn what I wanted to learn. I already knew I wanted to be a producer since my first collection. That was the way I wanted to go. Um, and yeah, I took the leap of faith and I said, I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to learn what I need to learn. I'm going to hands-on practical skills, kind of like working on people's film sets, getting that hands-on experience. At the same time, I'm a big researcher, so I go back and I look at stuff I need to research, stuff I need to find out about, things of that nature, um, to help me understand the industry, help me understand, what I'm getting into, in that sense. And it pretty much went from there. And in the sense of when I say it pretty much went from there, once I kind of understood my mission, what I wanted, every project I went on, I focused that on. If I jumped on somebody else's project as a production manager or production assistant, I gave my 110%, right? For that way, I know I'm present, I'm there, my transferable skills can be matched in this industry as well, and I'm able to be a productive employee, right? So I kept that same kind of work ethic um going into film, and it's been interesting that right, it's been very interesting since I've been there. um I learned. I'm still learning. I consider myself a student learner. I never want to say I'm an expert in anything.
Uh-huh.
Um, and it just went from there. Like from that one film project, I jumped on other people's film projects, and then I slowly started writing my own material, and it just went up from there. And like every year, I was just talking to somebody about this 2 days ago. It was a moment in time to where I was ready to stop it all. It's just like slow movements, nothing's happening, you're spending all this money, nobody's recognizing it. And then probably within the last 2 to 3 years, things started shifting different.
But it's so important that you mentioned this because it's also I think it's so important for people to understand that we always see the end result. We see the film, but we never see this path, before the film even happened. The other day spoke to somebody who told me, and I can't remember who the film producer was, but it took him about 8 years to just start shooting the film. And I thought, wow, what determination you have to just get on. And you were talking now about going and doing the work and assisting and not having that freedom to do your own thing, but being willing to learn and willing to work with people. And that's also so important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think one of the things that sometimes pulls people back from collaborating is the expression of ideas, right? And sometimes it's, I think in our business, creative arts business, whether it's theater, dance, music, film, any type of medium in the creative arts, I think yes, you can work independently and do a lot of great stuff business in, but I think the overall medium is that collaborative effort. So it's and that's one of the things I learned about film because it even writing screenplays, I'm in development of a production we're starting to shoot in the fall of this year. And I have another feature film that I want to shoot right after that. And I have 8 scripts, full length 8 scripts ready to go. I just need to edit it. And so there's always been that room to continuously write. And I have projects lined up. And some moments I get this creative splurge of energy, man, I just write. And sometimes you never know if it's going to get produced. Sometimes you don't know if that file will just stay in your folder and never breathe the light of day. But then that's what propelled me to look at it from a different angle and say, well, if I'm creating these elements, the business of film itself. Yes, it's a big risk business money wise, but there's ways to go about filming to get your project done. You just have to think outside the box and be open to unorthodox methods. Like, and what I mean by orthodox methods, meaning if you can't get film financing, if you did the crowdfunding and you don't have your budget, right? If the grants are there, but you're applying but not getting no word back, then you go into the passion project field, right? And you collaboratively create those creatives to help you make that film, right? So there is ways to go about it.
Yeah, and also I from speaking to many artists, also I always wonder that there's so much pressure also to be the best or to make the biggest film or to have the biggest concert or whatever, but it's the people actually who are doing the art, even like you say, even if it's not, you didn't have the big budget, but you could create and you could collaborate with other artists, that it's really the process of creating that's so important and not necessarily that big budget film that's somewhere in one big cinema, or the big concert or so, but it's actually about the people creating.
Yes, I agree 100%. And it's a learning curve. I think from my viewpoint, um, I think whatever direction an individual goes into the medium, film, dance, theater, music, or even technology or other industries, if you're thinking career, you're always thinking, what do you need to do to get to your next level, right? What skills you need to obtain, what stuff you need to do. Same as like in like I said, like any other industry, right? When you're looking to get a promotion, you're learning new skills to be equipped to handle that where
Yeah,
you want to go. And I think that same direction is in the entertainment business. It's if you come in thinking on career minded versus a job mind, right? You tend to you look at that aspects to where you'll be engaged going to industry, not just industry like networking partners, but you're going to industry events to network, or you're going online to join groups and communities and looking at new trends, right? You're looking at the trends and you're finding ways to produce what you love, and it happens. I see in my area where I live at in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, this is a thriving creative community out here. We're in between Philadelphia and New York. So two
okay,
big
yeah,
cities that's big in entertainment, and Lehigh Valley's in the middle. And we have a thriving music business and a thriving creative arts business in the theater stage, film and music. So as we're growing in that, and a lot of people are recognizing Lehigh Valley, we have a couple of films produced out here, shows produced out here from a Hollywood standpoint, HBO, stuff like that. Then we have a bunch of creatives out here that's creating and making things happen. So we're in a great situation in the sense of we have this opportunity to build the industry from with the independence that we have already out here, utilizing the major stuff as far as with the business and understanding it. But I just think from my standpoint, I'm glad I came this way for me,
yeah. Mm,
because it's showing me to think outside the box
mm,
as a creative, especially with film. There's like I said, when you start to get into that aspect of film financing and loans and investors and donors, and understanding if you come up short, it's not a failure. You just have to reorganize and try again, right?
yeah.
And it's just those business approaches. So it's
Mm.
interesting. It's interesting. Some days I pull out the hair that's not on my head, and
Yeah,
and
but
I sit
that's
here
part
and
of
say,
it,
yeah.
isn't it?
But
Yeah,
it's part of it. Yeah,
part
that's
of the
like it's
learning.
part of it.
But yeah, but I find it also interesting that we are, I mean, now with the digital era that we're living in, we have so many tools to make film and to sort of tell these stories. And I spoke to a filmmaker who actually did a documentary over a span of 5 years on her mobile phone.
Yeah, yeah,
And I thought, amazing. And I wouldn't have thought that you could do it, but it was actually very interesting. She was following somebody and telling her story. And like you say there, you have to know about the business, but it shouldn't stop you if you don't get the funding, or it shouldn't stop you if you don't have all that equipment. You have to tell the story.
that's right.
Mm,
That's right. And mobile filmmaking is picking up, and actually, there's major productions that actually have iPhone shots in them.
really?
I seen
Mm,
some YouTube videos to where they showed some certain pictures, and even some of the Marvel movies. One of the directors there was showing how he used iPhone on his dolly for
really?
some of the shots. And I have a cinematographer colleague that is interested in doing one of my projects in iPhone, and we've been talking back and forth with it and kind of
Amazing.
seeing what
Yeah.
it is. And there's a ways. Some of my in-depth arts and care podcasts I shoot on my iPhone. I shoot and
Mm,
record on my iPhone, and you wouldn't even tell the difference. You wouldn't
mm,
even tell the difference in cinematic mode. But something like that, right? Where when we're looking at the resources that we have available to us, right? If we cannot get the larger pie, what are the resources we have to us? Do you want to use an iPhone? Do you have a colleague with a camera? Do you know somebody that does sound, right? Do you want to partner with the local community colleges and do something together, right? So there's ways to go about to get your project and your story told. If it and I think that it takes that collaborative thinking to really pull it all together.
I spoke to a animator who started out. He's from, I think it was Tanzania or Kenya. I think it was Kenya. He started out drawing little pictures in a book, and you know how you flip the pages, and then the animation is sort of.
And like
We
appears
did that as children. Yeah, yeah. He did that for businesses because he didn't have a computer. He started out that way, and he ended up getting a scholarship, and now he's an animator. And I always think of how with a minimum, but with a passion and with a determination, you get to where you want to be. And that's so possible today, to do that.
I agree. It's I always say this, and just looking at the other person, there's that go-getter attitude that you need to have, right? But on top of the go-getter attitude, right, because we all could hustle and get what we need to get. My viewpoint, I always look at that. But sometimes you have to learn how to work smarter, not harder, right? So this is where you start to look at, okay, yes, you can hustle and do everything you need to do, but if it's burning you out, that means you're working harder than smarter.
Exactly. Yeah. No, absolutely. But tell me about this film that you did. What is the name? A Familiar Face.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So, A Familiar Face is a short film about a family, a gentleman or the father who relocated his family into a new town. And the whole premises of that is that he wasn't truthful to his family about his past. And his past pretty much came back up to haunt him. So it's a family story of trust, um, believability, love, and understanding of differences. And what I really wanted to focus on with The Familiar Face was really understanding that sometimes we don't make the right choices. And sometimes it does come back. But if we stand up to it and face it, we can overcome it. So as you walk through the story, you see the characters going through that. And then at the end, when the dad have now the two sons, you see at the end part, he hugs them both. So that's the conclusion, the glue that he needed. And that project to this day, I am still getting a lot of praises for that project. As far as just the simplicity of it and how the meaning of it went throughout the short film for it. So it definitely did well in the film festival circuit when it was running through film festivals, and it touched me differently as the writer, and I directed that one too and produced it. When I was writing A Familiar Face, the titles of the names changed a couple of different times, but when I was writing that script, my creative process through that was really what to show sometimes, and this is where I dug a little bit deeper. I wanted to show a different light for the male genre and the male character in the sense of not being just a bad dad or something like that. I wanted to show a genuine mistake. And once a mistake was recognized, a family reuniting, right? So I wanted to keep that aspect in it to where, yes, there's drama because drama happens in everybody's life at some point. But through communication, through talking, and through willingness to love, you can overcome anything. So that was the premises for me when I was even writing the script for A Familiar Face. And it it translated well on screen, I think, as far as holding it, the meaning of what I wrote the film for. Yeah.
But is that also because you're also a mental health practitioner?
It can be. I definitely think that my I've been in the field of mental health and substance abuse for 24 years now. Um, Absolutely, that plays a part, not just for me in identifying mental health, and advocating for mental health, but in any project I do or any writing aspect, I always look at that element of how do we deal with thoughts, feelings, and emotions, right? And everybody handles it extremely different from one another, but that doesn't mean that everybody's reactions are different or the same,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? So everybody might handle it different, but your reaction might be the same as mine's in certain situations. So I think that that's that's been the makeup of a lot of things. I think that's my understanding and my professionalism of understanding mental health. I think that pretty much shows up in everything I do, whether it's writing or talking with somebody or anything like that. I remember there's been a couple of times to where I could just be hanging out or just socializing or anywhere, being at an event or at the supermarket, start talking with people and just having regular conversations. And I always get the first reaction from people when they tell me, "So, what is it that you do?" And if I tell them, like, "Well, I'm a therapist. I work in mental health." I get the first reaction I get a lot of times for people would be like, "Oh my God, I wouldn't, wow."
Really?
And, and it's not the wow, like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're doing that." It's the wow, like, "I so believe that, Michael, because you're so easy to talk to."
Oh, yeah. Mm.
And sometimes it's one of those things too, to where it's a lot of times now, and this is just me thinking, I'm glad there's a lot more YouTubers and all this stuff coming out to where there's more voices talking about mental health, especially for men, to kind of hear that more and identify like it's okay to express your thoughts, feelings, and emotions. That doesn't make you a weak person. And to women in the sense of it's okay to express your feelings, emotions, and thoughts without feeling judged or being that you're going to be
Exactly.
placed in
Yeah.
judgment. Right. And
Mm.
I think the more we start to understand that as just people, our
Mm.
society gets better, but it's everything is still a work in progress.
Yeah, I think it's also and like you also highlighting art and the importance of art. And I always think that if we allow children at a young age to and there's more focus on art in schools and in education, we have then the culture of people being able to express themselves, because not everybody can express themselves through words, but sometimes through painting or through movement, or so the arts can be such an amazing tool for that. And
Hmm.
apart from all the other skills that you learn from pursuing an art form, but in the mental health uh, aspect of it, I think it's also so important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have to take care of ourselves, and we have to learn how to take care of ourselves. And as we go through life, hopefully a person or persons get to a point in their life so where they recognize to where it's okay to put yourself first,
Mm.
right? And take care of you. And what does that look like to you, right? And that's not being selfish, even though a lot of us was learned selfish is a bad thing. Then you start to get older and realizing that, huh, that's not really accurate, right? Because certain things in our life, we need to be selfish in order to regain what we need to regain, right? So if I'm being selfish because I want to take my self-care day, then I'm going to be selfish because I'm going to take my self-care day, right? So, and that's something for me to do. That way I'm keeping healthy, not just to be healthy, but I'm keeping my mind, body, and soul healthy. So I think it's okay to be selfish in certain aspects when you're taking care of yourself.
Well, I see it not really as selfish, because if I think my daughter is a flight attendant and they are getting taught, well, they say to people, to passengers also, always get your mask, your oxygen mask on first before you help somebody else, because the fact is, if you'll be stronger anyway if you have your mask on to care for somebody else. And I always see it that way. You know, if you care for yourself first, then you have more strength really to help somebody else. So in that way, it's very important to take care of yourself anyway.
Yes.
So, yeah. So I always have that image in my head that I have to put the mask on first before I help somebody else. And
That's right. And that's a great way to look at it. Is, again, it's not a power struggle. It's not an egotistical thing. It's none of that. It's understanding, you know, in order for you to do something, you got to be well.
Exactly. Yeah. But Michael, you're doing such great work and such a wonderful creative. So it's so inspiring that to talk to you, and also hearing that it's, you know, you also go through the struggles and the positive things, and also have to be persistent and do the thing. But what is the wish for you? What is the dream?
So my dream changed over the last 10 years, but never deviated off the path. It just modified. My dream always been to just produce the stories that I want to produce. If I would have had to say in the terms of the dream that I want, I am working, this is how I'm going to put it into the universe. I am working towards being a great independent producer that's creating diversity of films, not just racially motivated, but diversity in a sense of helping people understand how to move forward in their life, understanding emotions and feelings, understanding it's okay to be human, understanding that we all are living this life and we can live a good life in the sense of not just monetary, I'm talking about mind, body, and soul. And really just getting my words, my voice out there. It goes right back to that beginning, my beginning starting, just getting my voice out there. So that's always been my continued goal. And that goal kept my dream alive, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But do you still write poetry?
You know, believe it or not, that's an interesting question. Believe it or not, off and on. I actually have a collection that's been in the works for a while that I haven't finished. I have like 4 possible poetry collections that hasn't finished. So I'm definitely going to put out another poetry book, maybe next year sometime, 2026. But from the poetry, after my poetry books, I started writing children's books. I have a children's book out, Hey Charlie, and I'm doing an audio book next, or a children's audio book next. It's a musical children's audio book. And I think for me, it's still there because I write lyrics. So with the lyric writing, when I'm in my own emotion or I have an idea, I start sitting there and I start drafting up lyrics and start creating forms just based on my thought and my feeling without music. This is just me sitting down writing a record. And that keeps me in that poetry lane, in that sense of writing. And then I tend to keep a little ledger over here of like little quotes I kind of make up that develops into poems. So there's still that foundation there for me. It's just modified in a sense, right? And in a sense to where I consider myself a poet, I write poetry, but I put the writer in front of my name first, specifically. Yeah.
Amazing. Multi-talented you are.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, no, thank you. This was lovely. And I don't know if you ever heard this. I've been in the business long enough. You have a very soothing tone yourself. You could be a therapist or
Oh,
counselor.
really?
You have that attention. And
Oh, I see.
I'm sorry, my mouth is dry. You have that attention, but the tone, right?
I
Tonality
see.
is very important. People don't realize that tonality
Oh,
is
I
very
didn't know
important.
that. I didn't know. There's another branch I can put my toe into.
So you never know, right? You never know.
You never
I
know.
when as soon as you logged on, I got coach. That's the feeling that came from me.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Oh, amazing. You're the first person who said that to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Michael, thank you so much. You made
Thank
my day.
you. Well, thank you so much for having me on my show,
It's
and I
a
look forward
great
to seeing you
pleasure.
again.
Yeah.